Hey everyone, it's Stephanie, your CSA coach, and this is week 12B of our CSA share. So this is our last week of the first half of our CSA, so we're just getting over the hump in the next few weeks. Lots of fun stuff in our shares this week, but before we jump into that, there are a bunch of announcements. Bingo is still happening, so make sure you're printing out those bingo sheets. There's an adult one and a kid one, and then completing those bingo cards. Sunday, August 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. is the Sunset Snip, $25. More details are in our email. Last Art on the Farm with Dakota is this week, today from 4 to 6 and Thursday from 4 to 6. So last one with her. Insect ID event is Tuesday, August 15th from 2 to 6 p.m. Again, more details are in the email. So these are all described and given lots of details in the email. Okay, jumping right into this week's share. We have summer squash. So 2 to 4 pounds of summer squash. These are stored in the fridge, in your crisper drawer. These are amazing just grilled. We love to just slice them, season them with a little bit of salt and pepper, and throw them on the grill as a side. Last week's recipe showcased these, and it was really good. I give you 2 options to make summer squash fries. If you have an air fryer, there's that option, and if not, I give you a way to bake them also. But that's a fun and different way to use your summer squash. They can be used in baked goods. They can be used as like noodles. You can spiralize them and use them as noodles. You can eat them raw also. I like thinly slicing them sometimes and throwing them on a salad. You can pickle them. You can freeze them. So if you have a bunch and you still have some left over from last week, I like to pre-shred it, measure it, and throw it in a Ziploc bag and freeze it, and then I use them in baked goods. Also, lots and lots of veggies that are awesome for stir fries this week. So that's an option as well. So that's our summer squash. We got eggplant. Eggplant is stored in the fridge. You can wrap it in a towel to keep the moisture away from it. I just store it like this. Eggplant is really awesome grilled. You can fry it. It's really good in eggplant parm. There's an eggplant dip on the blog. There's also a grilled eggplant recipe on the blog. I can't remember what I called it. But if you go to the website and then go to recipes, you can type in eggplant and it will come up with all the different recipes for that particular vegetable. So if you know what you're doing with the items, then go ahead and do that. If you're struggling and unsure how you're going to use them, then refer to our blog. It's a great option with lots of ideas that fill a lot of these vegetables. We have peppers this week, so we have Cubanelles and we have green bell peppers, both stored in the fridge in your crisper drawer. They are awesome raw. You can throw them on salads. You can just slice them up as a snack. You can also roast them. We have onions this week, so a really good, you could do like a sheet pan fajita, which I believe there is a recipe on the blog. You can chop these up with our sweet onions, make a homemade salsa or pico de gallo, and that would be an awesome meal. If you have a lot of peppers, you can also freeze them. So I like to slice them, freeze them on a sheet pan, and then once they're frozen, throw them in a Ziploc bag. And then they make a great option down the line in the winter for fresh fajitas or just sauteed peppers and onions. So those get stored in the fridge. We have hot peppers, so we got to pick a long hot, which has more heat, and I can't remember this guy's name. Hold on, I wrote it down. A Santa Fe. The Santa Fe, the lighter colored one, is milder in heat. So these guys get stored the same as our other peppers in the fridge, in your crisper drawer, and they're used to add heat to any dish. So if you're making a fresh salsa, use these to add heat. If you're infusing, like if you want to do a hot sauce for your fajitas or your tacos, you can use these. But they're gonna be used to add heat. These peppers can be frozen also. You can either slice them up and remove the membranes and the seeds, which remove some of the heat, or just slice them up with the membranes and seeds and throw them in a Ziploc bag and then freeze them that way. These can be used, so there is a hot pepper honey on the blog that I make a lot, and that I'll freeze a bunch of hot peppers and then make a big, huge batch of hot pepper honey that I use for my favorite salad dressing. You can also use it as like a simple syrup in cocktails or drinks or lemonades. It just adds a little bit of heat and spice to those two items. So stored in the fridge. We have cucumbers. We have Kirby's, which make a great addition to pickling. So you can pickle these. You can slice them up and do spears. You can do rounds, or you can pickle them whole. These get stored in the fridge in your crisper drawer. We tend to just eat these raw. I rarely do anything with them. I leave the skins on because there's nutrients in the skin. I just wash them good, chop them up, throw them on the table, and the kids eat them. We will every now and then add them to salads. I will chop them up for the kids' lunches. So options there. There is a cucumber salad on the blog, and there's quick fridge pickles on the blog. So those are there for you if you need them. We have a bunch of tomatoes. So we got reds and heirlooms stored on the counter. If you slice them and don't use the whole thing, then put it in a Ziploc bag and store it in the fridge. But these are best stored on the counter. Your heirlooms you're gonna wanna use first, and then probably last is gonna be your reds. We also got to pick a quart of cherry tomatoes. Same idea, they're stored on the counter. You can just snack on them. You can slice these up and eat them just as a snack as well. You can use them on sandwiches. I'm pretty sure this week's recipe is gonna use some of the cherry tomatoes. Working on that idea in my head right now. So stay tuned for that. But these can also be used. I know I have a tomato soup, and I'm pretty sure I have a tomato sauce on the blog. You can freeze them all and use them later on for sauce if you're overflowing with tomatoes right now, because it is tomato season, so we'll see them a lot over the next few weeks. Definitely able to freeze them, and a great way to store them, for longer term use. Okay, those are our tomatoes all stored on the fridge, all stored on the counter, not in the fridge. We have two herbs that we received this week. We have cilantro. Cilantro goes in a glass jar in the fridge. You can also, I brought this with me to the beach because I was gonna do a big batch of roasted tomatillo salsa verde. And I put it in a Ziploc bag and it lasted really well. So if the jar's in the fridge, like I always worry that my kids are gonna knock them over and make a mess. If the jars in the fridge don't work for you, it does need to stay in the fridge. You can wrap a wet towel around the bottom and you can try it in a Ziploc bag as well. But this did make it several days just in a Ziploc bag in a cooler and then in the fridge until I was ready to make the salsa. Great for Mexican dishes, any Mexican inspired dish. So your salsas, your pico de gallos, if you're doing like a cilantro lime rice, that works really well. Cilantro freezes really well, and you can also dehydrate it. So those are options if you have a lot of it, you're not gonna use this whole bunch. We also received basil. Basil goes in a glass jar of water on the counter. It does not like to be in the fridge, and basil pairs really well with our tomatoes. So you could just do a simple tomato salad with basil. You can throw a big bunch of basil into a vinaigrette and make a salad dressing. I love basil. If you still have basil from previous weeks and you're overflowing in basil, make a big, huge batch of pesto and freeze it into cubes, and then you just pull those cubes out when you're ready to use them. But this goes on the counter in a glass of water. We have salad mix, so we got a 1/2 pound of salad mix. This gets stored just like this in the fridge. Do not wash it until you're ready to use it. Once you're ready to use it, rinse it all off, spin it in your salad spinner, and then it's ready to go. And obviously a great base for salads. Whether you just simply dress this as is and keep it super simple, or you add some of the other vegetables we got this week, you can do either. And remember that salad can be eaten any time of day. You can have it as a snack, you can have it with your breakfast, you can have it with your lunch, and you can have it with your dinner. We have Sweet onions, these are uncured, they're fresh. So when anytime you're seeing in our email that something is fresh, it means it's stored in the fridge. Once that fresh is taken out, it means that it's cured and we're gonna store it in a cool, dry place. So these get stored in the fridge because they're not cured yet. They are fantastic, just sliced on burgers or sandwiches. You can slice them really thin and add them to salads. Pretty sure I'm using these for this week's recipe, or a portion of this week's recipe, so stay tuned for that. Would make a great addition to onion soup, or any soups in general. I know it's really not soup season, but I'm seeing a lot of people still eat soups even though it's warmer out. So these would work for that. Also, I mentioned the sheet pan fajitas. They would work great for that. And just a simple, big, huge pan of roasted vegetables. Throw some of these in there as well. So those are our onions. We have a bulb of garlic. Now this is cured. So this gets stored in a cool, dry place. When you're ready to use it, take it out, take some bulbs, peel them, and then crush them, chop them up, use them however you want. You can roast this, you can grill it, you can use it in grill packets. I mean, we use garlic for just about everything. I love garlic. Pretty sure this is gonna be possibly the star of my dish this week. So stay tuned for that, but we'll be receiving garlic over the next few weeks. 2 more items that we got to pick that are new to the shares this week. We have shishito peppers. Shishito peppers are stored in the fridge just like this. I will probably put the lid on them just so nothing gets in them. Throw them in my fridge until I'm ready to use them. These can be frozen. They can be chopped and frozen. They can be frozen whole. Obviously, if you freeze something, then you don't want to eat it raw. You're going to have to cook it. So they can be used in stir fries. There are, trying to remember, I've done a bunch of recipes with shishitos. I know I've done pickled shishitos. I know I've done blistered shishitos, which is probably my easiest and quickest way to serve shishitos. These are generally mild, but the rule is anywhere between 1 and 5 and 1 and 10 shishito peppers is hot. So it's always fun when I make shishitos as a side, which is usually how we serve them, who gets the hot one. And we often don't have a whole lot of hot ones, but it's always funny when someone bites down and has a little bit more heat than they're used to because most of them are mild. So beware of that. If you're serving them to little kids, you might want to take a bite of one of them first before you give them to your littles, unless they really love spice. So those are shishitos. Refer to the blog and also the email. The email gave a huge description of shishitos, how to store them, different ways to use them, and there are recipe links on there as well. And last but not least are our ground cherries. Ground cherries are named because we picked them from the ground. So when you're in that field, they kind of look like tomatoes hanging on the vines, except they're in husks. The husks are green when they're on the plant, but then they begin to brown and they fall to the ground. The ones you want to pick are the ones on the ground. Those are the ones that are ripe. If you see some on the plant that have browned, then those are okay as well. But I literally lifted up the leaves of 1 or 2 plants and picked all of mine right there. They're picked from the ground, which is a little bit odd. We usually think the ones on the ground are not good. That's what you want to pick. Now these stay in the husk just like you would a tomatillo. You can store them on the counter or you can store them in your fridge. When you are ready to use them, you peel them out of the husk, and then, so that's what they look like inside. You peel them out of the husk, pull the husk off, and then you rinse them and use them how you would. I have a bunch of recipes on the blog. I know I have chocolate covered ground cherries. I'm pretty sure I have a jam. I think I have a dressing that uses them. These can definitely be frozen also. So when I freeze them, I clean them. I take the husks off, I rinse them all off, dry them, throw them in a Ziploc bag, and I have them pre-measured so I know how many I have before I throw them into a recipe. But you can make simple syrups out of these. I know Trisha put a link to a pie that she loves. These will last So it's not something you have to use this week. We'll likely be picking them for a few weeks. So if you want to accumulate more, just store them in the fridge, keep them as is, and then wait till next week or the following week till we get more. And then you can make a big batch of something if you need more for your recipe. That is it for this week. If you have anything that you have not used from last week, make sure you focus on that first. And then probably this week, we're going to want to use or figure out how you're gonna preserve the cilantro, the heirlooms, and the salad mix. Those are your top three to focus on initially. The rest of the stuff is pretty much gonna last. And stay tuned for the recipe on Thursday. And I will see you guys all again next week.